Y'all are a quiet bunch this morning. It's out of character.
Got a lot on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna hear about it?
You're gonna hear some of it, I'm sure.
Maybe.
The rest we don't want to hear about.
We can finish this one.
No water on the driveway, thank you.
Very nice. It's working.
It is working.
Yeah, I was just looking at that to see if I could pull it down and throw the.
It just went up all by itself about 10 minutes ago.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Oh.
it was down and it just, we sat here, watched it go. Nobody touched it. and
Maybe
went
it's
up
that dial over there on the black side.
Maybe when you plug in the computer, it'll come down.
Well, it's electric, so it should have some kind of control to do it. Morning, Sherry.
Good morning. Morning. You guys think I have a lot of room here. My apologies. You're fine.
She could put on that she's missing every day.
Bushes. Old buses that end up lifespan.
Got something on the green wall. We'll just put a sheet up there. Better. Oh, maybe one need a, this must be a screen here too. You think that's sufficient, Jeremy?
That's pretty good.
You see a portable screen sitting there.
All right, 9 o'clock. This is all. We'll get by it, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
It went up by itself.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
yeah, yeah. This morning when I was sitting here, I came early and the gentleman over there was sitting.
Yeah, are both
It
those
just
light
was-
switches, light switches?
Yeah, there are two sets. It's clear.
Not too bad.
All right.
As it gets.
You ready?
Mm.
All right, it's 9 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we have any guests that want to talk, there's a form here, just put in that you want to say something. Roll call, Mark Eversman here.
Cindy Watterson here.
Bruce Flat here. Vince Pagetto here.
Nancy Smith here, Sherry Briscoe here.
Let it show that we have a quorum. Now's the time for public comment. We have Tom Pafelski from DeMonte Way.
Good morning.
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 My name is Tom Fifelski. I live in Verona on Diamante Way. I've been here 7 years, and shows you how ignorant I am. I never heard of this committee. Now, where I live is alongside of Pelican Preserve Boulevard, just before you get to the bridge. And while the 7 years that I've been here, the shrubbery between me and the boulevard has been slowly destroyed by hot wire coming in with their cables, the sprinkler system people coming in and damaging the bushes, and nobody's ever repaired them. And I can stand at my kitchen sink currently and look across the street at a villa. I shouldn't have that privilege. I would think that we should have some sort of a full bush. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we did plant 5 new bushes in there last season. They're newer, so they're only like 4 feet tall. And we also are putting in another row of jatropha bushes, which will get fairly good size. It's already been approved, and Ameriscape has to go ahead to put those in, which will be towards the street side of the bushes that you currently have. So you will have a double row of bushes in there.
That would be nice. It sure don't look like it.
Well,
But, well, I'm 85 now. And for those bushes to grow, I may not be here.
but we have planted bushes that had died last season.
Yeah.
So, all right. All right, thank you.
For the info.
Sure.
Bring
Next,
it to the right place, Tom. This is the place.
we have
This is the right place to address.
Bob, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, that's you? Okay. Yes, Bob.
We're working at the district level, we're working on our budget. There are 2 things surfaced that are kind of costly that I wanted to recommend to the committee. The first has to deal with, like at the last meeting, when we approved 30 different expenditures, some number, $500 for this stuff.
Yep.
The, unbeknownst to me, but the net result of that is that when it hits the district office, they create a volume of paperwork, individual POs.
Wasn't done. It was done under 1 PO.
That's not what I was told.
I just did.
Specifically to ask for that. So that was my suggestion.
It was just done.
Okay. Like I told this
Okay.
Chelsea that it wasn't. Okay. So if we're doing that, great. 1 PO is right. Because they said Julie had to generate all of
No.
these POs.
No.
All right. The second thing too is the frequency of the meeting. The district has proposed, it's not approved yet, that our cost increase for support of all of our subsystems. And it's going up almost 100%. So one way we could mitigate that, if you so choose, is to have meetings bi-monthly. I'll just throw that out there for consideration. But the costs are going up, maintenance and people coming to meetings and all the things. Ponds has no problems with it. They only meet quarterly anyway. So if you guys are getting stable and mature enough now that every other month would work, consider it. If not, keep going with where you are. But there is a cost associated with it. Thank you.
And Mark,
Yes, Carol.
Carol Panwell, one of the things that some committees do is they basically take July and August off. Because a lot of their committee members are traveling, tougher to get quorums, all that sort of stuff. So that is something that you might want to consider also.
Okay. Yes,
Bruce
Bruce.
Blatt, I think on our sign-in sheet, a bunch of us put our dates of not being available. So before we take that step one more one further, make sure everybody's put their availabilities through, say, let's say October. So we can maybe expedite the discussion. There was a sheet where we mark our attendance.
It's probably underneath there.
I got it.
And Sherry and
And I know several people, as Bruce said, were not going to be available some this summer, so we would probably have difficulty in some months even having a quorum anyway. So, I don't have a problem with going bi-monthly. My only concern at this point is right now, we've been running the full 2 hours every month and struggling, not even getting all our agenda items covered at that point. So it may be an item, once we get through the summer, which we know we're going to be lean anyway.
The group is maturing. We're
Correct.
getting better at it. Daniel, are the requirements the same for a workshop as they are for a meeting?
Yes.
You still have to record it all and all that?
Yep.
That's just gonna be workshops.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments at this time? All right. Next up is approval of the minutes from last month's meeting, which I don't see a copy enclosed.
Georgia had said a comment about that yesterday. So Infomark is behind with all the meeting minutes, and we just received the March 28th landscape meetings today, so that'll go on the June 27th agenda meeting.
Okay. So at this point, there are no minutes to approve that I'm aware of. So we will wait till the next time we get together to discuss that. The next item up is financials, which we're still looking very good. I don't think Laura has attached them, but she sent them to me yesterday. The one thing I would like to do on financials is our tree trimming budget is 154,000, of which we have about 30 spoken for, which is an issue we'll discuss later. So that leaves quite a bit of money left in tree trimming. We do have projects that we've been working on, such as benches and painting, that we need to get paid for. And Daniel has appropriately been taking them out of R&M other landscape. And I'm concerned that if we keep pulling all these miscellaneous things out of there, then we may deplete that line item. So I would like to request that we consider transferring $30,000 out of our tree trimming budget into R&M other landscaping. So where we have extra money in tree trimming to allocate it towards R&M landscape, other landscape.
Can you get the financials?
It's not, she didn't send them to me. He's got them up on his phone. And she didn't,
They're available. We should be able to get them.
she didn't attach them to the meeting minutes. And she didn't email them to me.
Do I have a motion to transfer $30,000 from tree trimming into R&M other landscape?
Cindy Waterston, I'll make a motion.
Second,
Is that a second?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So hopefully Laura will take care of that. Are there any questions? I know you haven't seen them, but are there any questions on financials? Again, we're perfectly fine in all of our areas at this point.
Mark, I will, if Nancy Smith, I'll have a question, but we'll wait until we get to the 9-minute section.
Financials are coming together.
Okay. Next item for discussion is landscaping contract scope of work review.
Okay.
I didn't put it on there.
Okay. As y'all are aware, it's coming close to the end of contract for Ameriscape. It's time to rebid or resolicit for proposals for that. See the background here.
think it's due in March, right?
Yeah. So there's some tentative dates in here that we're trying to aim for. Trying to get that proposal together. So on the gateway side of the house, I did this with Mainscapes earlier this year to try to get it in for the fiscal. And we're now trying to ask you all to start looking at the contract for Mainscape that currently exists, and then what we want to capture in the future for our upcoming contract as we put it
I
out.
think I have headphones. You have headphones?
Chelsea, mute yourself, please.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's a need for a deep dive into that contract. There's too many shortcomings on Ameriscape's part. I mean, I got into the middle of one just this past month. I had to be the arbitrator between Greenscape and Ameriscape. And there seems, and this is a common problem, we've heard about it where, Peter and Aviano, I think it was, he couldn't get Ameriscape to respond to a sprinkler issue. That's one that's been brought up before. This happened to be on my front door. Basically, I live in Matarita too. It had to do with the monument. We could never get resolved who owned the timers for the watering of the monuments. Luckily, one of our neighbors allowed me to drag the hose from his property to the monument to water it because I couldn't get Greenscape to admit that it was under their control. Ameriscape wouldn't return Greenscape's phone calls. I was there. I went up the food chain at Greenscape, and I got the regional director of operations to actually show up on property, this Christie. And I called her as a homeowner because Joe, the guy who is the manager for their irrigation, is a great guy. I dealt with him when I had my pool done. He was very cooperative. Leslie was throwing her hands up. They showed me on their phones how many times they had called Javier with no return. Bottom line is Greenscape did something, took care of controlling that, and now we get water back to the monument. We won't discuss how they did it, but they did it, okay? Ameriscape, they think they have a monopoly. I'll say it on public record. I told Greenscape that bids will be going out sometime by the end of the year or thereabouts. We would love more competition in the bidding process. And I think we really, here's a prime example. I know it's later in the agenda. We're talking about tree trimming of the palms. Now the palms are no longer little palms. They're 10 feet, in excess of 10 feet. His contract reads they don't have to trim anything higher than 10 feet. We have to make adjustments to that. I know it's going to come up in the agenda items, but in his contract, it's not a given. There could be palms hanging, touching the ground. They don't trim it. It's a simple thing. They walk around with machetes that could cut it off, 1, 2, 3. I know I could take a swing and take them down. So why they can't? So they've been getting away with murder in plain English, and I think we really need to go through the contracts with a fine tooth, comb and weed out the crap, because the mats, we've been talking about how they soil the streets where they stage every morning.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 months ago. We were told they were getting mats. The mats still aren't there. This week, a mower broke down on Prado Drive. They brought it outside vendor to do the repair had it up on the jacks with the oil leaking all over the place. So we really got to start monitoring these contracts and solicit more. Maybe bring the Mainscapes into the fold. I know they do big time contracts. I know it's all about the dollar, but lowest price isn't always the best. I worked in corporate America after leaving my public sector job, and I had a lot to do with bid solicitation and all different avenues, and not always the lowest bid was the best bid. And we need to start looking at that.
I've got a couple comments to chime in. Generally speaking, keep irrigation separate from all other landscape issues. It's a totally different ball of wax. It is being addressed right now. It's going to be slow. We have a little control over it. It's primarily the golf course. They have a contract with the landscape, does the whole community. So there's a lot of individual issues on that. Secondly, with the overall master contract, we expect to have this week the sign off for the last 2 easements from PPCA. Once that is done, we're going to have a GIS document that the district will publish for everybody to bid on. So everybody will be bidding on what areas they're going to do. To your point about how often or how high, that's all subject to this committee reviewing that document and approving. But we're very, very close to having at last the easement documents all together.
This is Nancy Smith. I'm going to keep this probably at a little higher level. I went in and I read all of the documents that were present on the agenda today. And here is my perspective. No disrespect to anyone on this room. Landscaping companies need to be managed. They need to be managed. And when they are managed, they tend to produce better results. From a high level, I mean, there are things in the contract today like debris and weeds and dying plants that they've installed and meeting on site and requested, no name tags or logos on their uniform, things that are in the contract today. And I've learned recently that this team has so much authority to ensure those things happen. So with that said, we really have to count on the district to apply pressure where we cannot. Most recently, again, as I said, I learned that there's certain things that I cannot do, but when I did them, not knowing that, I got immediate results. And I got a beautiful letter from the owner of Ameriscape who got on it right away. I did not include that person in the email I sent out, but when I included Marissa, who kind of manages between all of the senior management, she sent it to him, and the apology note was sincere and acted upon immediately, and the issue was corrected. So we really, I think, have to count on the GSCVD to do maybe a more thorough job of managing our landscape company if we want to see any change with them. I believe they're capable, but they need to be managed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
JB, this is Bob. The only comment I would have to that, I totally agree with you, but I think the responsibility can happen in this group. We don't need the district to do that. They'll manage the contract. But if somebody's not complying with what they should, a simple call from Mark, or if he calls the district to do it. But we have the authority, we have the money, we control the checkbook. We, as this group, you don't need to have administrators to do it.
And this is Nancy. I have one comment, again, respectfully. We hear in this meeting multiple times the things that Ameriscape is not doing to take an extra step, and we have people in this room that are caring about it, and there's no action taken, concerns me. That's it.
This is Bruce, and to add slightly to Nancy's point, I put a ticket in last week for a systematic problem with sprinklers. They come on, they go off. I know, but it lends to the point of Ameriscape's lack of cooperation. I put
This
in
group
tickets.
doesn't have irrigation. We don't have irrigation. It's a separate item. Stable landscaping, I'm with you all the way.
Well, that's part of landscape, and when we
It
put
may
in,
be, but it's separate.
but we put in new plants and they're not getting properly taken care of, and that's part of our responsibility are the dying plants that everybody sees now. And all you hear from residents who know who is on this committee, I could be playing pickleball. Your friend Peter is a pain in my ass in plain English. Why are those little copper leaves dying? I go, Peter, come to a meeting, otherwise shut the F up. Okay, because I'm getting tired of that. So I'm like a moving target now, because I was very proactive and my name got out there. and now it's become abusive. Okay, so I don't care if it's irrigation, it's Ameriscape not returning my phone calls, Javier, lack of respect. I try to mediate between them and Greenscape. Thank God Greenscape was responsive. I got the issue taken care of. Yes, it's irrigation, but it was plants dying on the monument that I personally
disagree with
replaced.
anything you said, but you just gotta be focused.
I am focused and our plants are
Irrigation is
dying,
not part of this.
but the plants are dying because of the irrigation.
I
And it's
understand.
our expenses going down the drain, okay? And I don't want to hear it's warranty, because when people come into this development, just like I brought up the trimming issue as an agenda item, it looks very poor as a homeowner to see dying palms laying in the streets or hanging from trees, brushing the lawn because they don't have the time to cut it off, or the magnolia trees that are encompassed by the calusa bushes because they don't have the time to clear. They'll trim the calusas, but they don't clear the magnolia trees. So now we have a bunch of dead magnolia trees. Okay, so it's lack of service that it starts with irrigation. So if I'm gonna do this job properly and
Irrigation
hear my
is not
voice,
a district function.
but
I'm
it's,
sorry, it's not.
okay, then who's gonna pay for the dying plants?
We need to work on it. I'm not
Is
saying
it the
nobody needs
master
to work
board?
on it, but stay focused on what we do. This, we do not have the contract. We didn't issue it. So we can complain, and we certainly should.
So then I'm complaining.
Well, and you should properly. But I'm saying irrigation is a recognized issue that is standalone and is going to be resolved this year, we hope.
Just like other problems that have created bigger problems that still haven't been resolved. So I'm not one who'll sit here and say, oh, that's on the agenda for 6 months from now.
But it'll
Get
be
it
done
done
every
now.
month. If you don't control the purse strings and you don't control the contract, what do you want to do other than talk about it?
Well, we do hey, we give a lot of business to Ameriscape and they're just
Not
allowing.
irrigation.
Okay,
I'm not trying to cut you
No,
off.
I
understand the
understand.
question.
No.
I'm just as frustrated. But irrigation is not a district contract, period. So
so
we can only handle things that are related to the district.
who owns the contract for
It's
irrigation?
either, probably golf. It's either golf or
Probably
PBC.
yeah, PPCA.
Part of it, this is Ed, Edges. My understanding is that the Matarita 2 and Prado and all those get their irrigation from Gateway.
Correct.
Correct.
Who manages those controllers,
And Prado,
time clocks
and Prado is part of our contract,
with,
Ameriscape.
but but the ones that are like the Matarita 2 that do
That one I don't know.
boardwalk, is that
Now-
manages those time clocks? Does the
Greens-
district manage the time clocks
This is
or does?
Greenscape, for Matarita too, since I'm a resident there, because they finally sat down and figured it out, they control the time clocks for the irrigation.
Who's that?
Greenscape,
For Matarita 2?
Correct.
Or the Boulevard?
just for Matarita too. But that was the dividing line, that Prado Boulevard
But the Boulevard.
is
on down there,
Ameriscape.
Well, he gets his irrigation from Gateway. It
Right.
doesn't get it
From the
from,
bottom.
from the ponds.
Correct.
So Ameriscape manages that time clock?
Yet they control the pedestal. That was half the problem. They wouldn't allow Greenscape
Those are
into.
different.
Yeah, my understanding is, Old Pelican is real simple. It's all irrigation from the dollars, all. Once you get into the new areas where the water is different, I'm not totally clear how it works.
Right.
But I think that the mandate for Ameriscape is to run all of our community's pedestals and tires. I believe they run it for everything. May not be doing a good job, but they're the ones that are charged with it.
Well, at least from the Community Association water, Ameriscape manages that. And those have the Toro, they get the water from the pond and they have the Toro pedestals.
Correct.
Once you get to Gateway irrigation, they have the time clocks and that. But each of the neighborhoods,
They have their own.
they have their own pedestal and their landscape or whoever manages those. But the Ameriscape does this
I think system-wide, Ameriscape does it for the community under the umbrella of PPCA. Regardless of the source of the water that comes from Gateway, it's just the source of water. And Ameriscape thought, well, it's part of what's being investigated in irrigation. Right. As I said, it's a bowl of spaghetti. It's not.
And just that,
But at least they know who's.
and in the
they
case
confirm
of
who's who.
Matter-
You solve the problem, who's the control.
because Javier thought he was the only one who was Toro certified. Greenscape has now got their certification. He wouldn't allow them into the pedestal. Don't ask me how they did it, but they have the control now of Matarita's water for this area in question, which was a little piece that controlled the monument and some side yards, the people's homes, which are part of the common areas. So Dick Greenscape said, we will work it out and figure it out. And they figured it out. Don't ask me how.
Okay.
This is Mark. I'd just like to make a couple comments. Review the contract. In my opinion, the contract as we have it is not a bad contract. The problem is we're not holding Ameriscape to the contract. What I've started doing this month is I put in 15 to 20 tickets and they respond to those, where if I would just tell them something, it may not happen. But they do respond to the tickets because there's a monthly log of that and they have to put down whether or not they were accomplished. So as we do run into issues where they are not, in our opinion, following the contract, submit tickets because they seem to respond to those.
This is Bruce, not to interrupt, but one was put in last Saturday and it still hasn't been resolved as of last night when the sprinklers came on again and they're still malfunctioning. So the 48-hour rule is out the window.
And there are several
And
instances.
Javier will not return my phone calls because I'm on his shit list.
This is Sherry
Yes,
Briscoe. Two things. So the Aviano monument, I put a ticket in and all our plants are dying. You can even see the flowers are struggling. I mean, they're almost dead. So somebody put a comment in that they're going to add more plants next quarter, which doesn't solve the issue that there's no water at the monument that happened. So second thing is I picked up the hubcap by the front
Oh, I
gate.
was wondering who finally picked it
I
up.
could not stand it anymore. It took 5 weeks of watching it and finally I stopped the car, picked it up and threw it away. So again, Ameriscape, in this contract, we should be listing if they're not following through with the items that they're charged to do, they need to be, money needs to be taken away from that. The
Oh,
monthly
fines.
bill, if they're not cleaning up after themselves, that front gate should be perfect every single day.
Again, if we submit tickets, then we have a history of where they fall short versus just
Absolutely.
Do you get copies of the tickets?
at the end of the month. And in fact, we're all supposed to get it.
Individually or just the summary?
We get well, each ticket is listed in what their status is.
Because I've seen the summary, I've never seen individual tickets.
I believe if you, Nancy, if you ask for them, I get them. I asked for them.
At one time, I had asked that everybody on this committee get that end of month. So we can make that
Hold us
request.
accountable to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, please do the tickets. Then we have a history of what they were supposed to be doing, where they fall short, and if they're accomplishing that, as opposed to everybody just coming up with their stories as to where they have fallen short.
May I suggest something? Since we've got a whole group here on the committee, there's 7 people, rather than everyone being all over the place, is there a way that we can section off a certain, like 2 people into one section of Pelican Reserve to go in and check it and watch over it, rather than me going through the whole development every week? It would make sense that maybe Nancy and I would take the front section and then Bruce and take the.
Create zones. That's
Yes,
exactly what Bob
exactly.
does. That's exactly how Bob does it.
And then we'd be stronger that way. That way not 2 people are putting in tickets for the same item. It might be a more better structure.
Okay, we can look at that.
Did you write up a proposal?
I should think.
That'd be a great idea.
Kind of the sunshine laws effect that if 2 people were getting together.
We can't.
Not together, not together.
I'd be in my own golf cart doing my own thing, but rather than going through the whole area at one time, I know that that section, that zone is only for me, so I can go whenever I want,
But
by myself.
the other answer to sunshine law, we have people that are part of this group, but not core. They can meet with any one core person. Bonds does that also. So then Sherry and a non-core individual, they can meet and make a recommendation that comes here. Can't make decisions, they can only make recommendations. That's how you deal with them. Thank you.
One other quick comment, as long as Bruce mentioned it. I'm gonna regret planting copperleaf because they're a good plant and they're not dead. And every time it rains, you see them start to come back. There was a problem with a pedestal where we planted that group of copperleaf on Cypress Grove, which they took about a week and a half to fix. They suffered immensely, no question, but I've checked them several times. They're still alive, and I'll bet you by the end of summer, they're 5 feet tall. But people see something that doesn't look good, and they automatically jump to the conclusion that they're dead, which it's getting a little frustrating.
It's an educational process.
Can I jump in real fast?
Yes.
Daniel Potter, Public Works Director, just a item that we've done on the other side of the house that has helped us correct some of the management issues is we sit down quarterly with leadership from Mainscapes in person and address the issues as they've been seen throughout the quarter. We've seen a very quick turnaround on how things were being operated. And then there was just a lot more high site visibility across the board with items that were, hot ticket items for us. Maybe making a suggestion to this committee that we start doing that with the Mayorscapes and bringing them into the the landscape committee meeting and just having a touch point with them. And you can address some issues then and there and in real time with their leadership.
Well, this Bruce, we did request they show up today, but Javier has a dental appointment.
I requested right after the last meeting that they come, and he said he already had a dentist
Make it
appointment.
a condition of the contract.
Well,
Anyway.
we can chase that up but what it happened on the Mainscape side of the house was started at the low level, non-responsive, and I just chased it, and Chelsea and I chased it all the way up to the VP of sales and directors and got it, all the main people involved at that point from their leadership.
We make it a condition of contract.
So,
This is Cindy Watterson. I agree with having them here, but I think we have to have a specific agenda instead of everyone yelling at him.
Right.
If we're not addressing it and going straight down the line, then we're not going to get any action on it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Agree.
Can I chime in real quick?
Go ahead, Chelsea.
So back to Mark Eversman's point is I would strongly encourage you all to put in these tickets into the Ameriscape system because that's how we can hold them accountable. So if you divide the community up into sections and you go, like Sherry was saying, you go out over the next, couple weeks and do an assessment, put in those tickets. There are contractual obligations to their response to those tickets. And so that's something we can go back to the contract with Ameriscape and say, okay, this was submitted on X date. Per contract, you were to resolve by Y, and it was completed at Z. Did they meet that expectation or not?
Marty Mantonfeld from the PPAC. So I live in Monticello, and the landscape committee for Monticello meets with Javier Jr. monthly on a regular basis. And 3 members walk the entire length of Brino Drive every month with Javier Jr. and point out the issues that he writes down the list and takes care of.
So from that neighborhood point of view, we're just trying to do it for our assets.
Right.
For the gateway assets, you would say.
Sherry from Rusco, we tried to do that with them at our neighborhood, and they would not even meet with us. So,
And that's why you changed.
and that's why we changed.
There you go.
So this is Mark. We will request Javier to come to the next meeting where we can verify that we're going to have a quorum. Obviously, we have to make sure we will have an adequate number here to address this. All right, can we move on to the next item? Payment of Ameriscape invoice. over
One
Gulf-
second before you move on, Mark.
Okay,
Up here's a tentative timeline here for the scoping and RFP for the invitation to bid for the next contract for this. I'd ask that each of the committee members get in and start looking at the previous contracts if you haven't already and refamiliarize yourself. The timeline is actually very tight if you really think about trying to get it through an approval process. So I might recommend that you have a workshop specifically dedicated to said contract so that you can get the scoping all locked in and identify possibly a lead to take that as their own to chair forward.
And so this Ameriscape contract doesn't expire until March 31st. So there is a little bit of wiggle room, but being that we have to get the committee together in a public forum, we really need to get this ball rolling so we can get it advertised.
Got an idea for a workshop date, tentative?
Chelsea, are we still holding to this timeline that we've got up here for tentative, or are we?
No, we're beyond that timeline at this point.
Yeah,
So,
it
but
looks like we're already beyond it.
2030.
So I'd leave it up to y'all on when you would preferably like to do a workshop with enough time for us to advertise it, and then time for the contract to be scoped and rewritten out, and that when they come to the meeting for the workshop, that we're just going over the high notes. So just did this with safety and security for the Wiser contract that's coming up. Best practice there was to generate it, put it on on the SharePoint site, work through some of the items for scoping, and then when we come together for the workshop, we just review said contract that we want to put out for the RFP.
And the workshop was very productive and intense. They reviewed every line.
Every line, I literally had it up, the actual working document up on the screen, and if verbiage wasn't right, because there's a couple of vetting sessions that have to go through legal after, just make sure that we've got the right verbiage, legal jargon side of the house.
Pick sometime in June to do
And-
the workshop. Be great.
I would, we can try and pick a time. I will be leaving on approximately June 17th for a few months. Bruce leaves June 1st.
I'm out around the 16th for a week.
So,
Week of June 3rd. You two are here.
no, we're gone. Oh, June 3rd. Not the third week.
Do it that week.
I'm still here.
Just got a notice for me, I have other applications. I mean, if we did it a month out, I might be able to be there.
I don't know if you're gonna be.
Okay, well,
I mean,
But it is on your workshop, just to come up with recommendations.
Yeah.
And if I could call in.
We don't need a quorum either, do we? For a workshop.
A copy.
Yeah, we don't.
There's
need a
no
quorum for a
decisions being
workshop.
made, no formal decisions. We're just
I'll
drafting
call
a
in.
scope
Okay,
in the RFP.
could you call in potentially?
No, I'd have to look at my calendar. I
All right.
already booked that in June.
All right, we look at, if we just pick a day for the week of June 3rd,
You say the Thursday would be June 6th.
June 6th. How many people could make in person, out of curiosity? Sherry, Vince, Cindy, myself.
Could do after 2 o'clock.
Is that a yes? You could?
I could do after 2 p.m.
All right, you want to say 2 p.m., June 6th, tentative?
Sure.
Okay. And we'll see if we can get a meeting room.
Work that.
All right.
All right. Just wanted to make sure we were forward progress on this item before we left it.
All right. Next is payment of Ameriscape invoice for golf cart fire. This was comedy of errors. As well know, there was a golf cart fire down by Valentina. It burned some sod, scorched seriously several plants, and we know who did it. And the plants needed to be replaced, but I was holding off until we were sure how it was going to be paid for, because I did not believe the GSCDD should be responsible for a golf cart fire from a person in here. Through some misunderstanding, don't know how, it was believed that the owner had agreed to pay for those damages, and approval was given to Ameriscape, who then did the work. The owner now says they did not give such approval, and they think Ameriscape overplanted and et cetera. So where we are now is Ameriscape did the work 2 months ago, and they're saying, rightly so, they would like to be paid because they were given approval. And the homeowner is complaining about several things and saying that they shouldn't be made to pay that much. So we've been asked to discuss this and see if we have a suggestion. In looking at what's put in, they replaced what was badly damaged. The only thing I will say is they put in one, I think it was a ligustrum that was 25 gallon. I don't know that we needed a 25 gallon ligustrum, and when you go that size, the price goes up considerably. So Laura has asked that we look into this, and she said she would call the owner back. I guess I am willing to fund part of this, but I really want the owner to take some liability on this, because obviously it was their golf cart that burned it all up. So,
Make the recommendation.
yeah,
You pay the bill, and then deal with the district's attorney, go ahead and go.
Right.
Whatever kind of.
So the bill's been paid.
Okay. the
It's
bill's
been paid- been
So now
paid.
it's just a question of engaging the attorney.
Mhm.
For the responsibility.
And that dollar sign was for $1,619.80.
so here's my question. Do we have, is it worth it to us to engage an attorney to,
No cost, he's on the payroll.
right? So we can turn it over to the attorney. Again, I am not resistant to finding common ground versus holding true to the $1,617.
You as chairman want to try to make that common ground agreement, and we'll just do it. Or
I'd rather not at this
Okay.
point.
that's why.
See your golf cart.
Can I interrupt for a second? The intent is not to pursue an attorney for this. I would have to do some research or have somebody do some research to find out who their insurance company is, and we would just contact their insurance company directly and try to get reimbursement from them. We're not going to take it to court or sue them or involve an attorney.
Well, it's just a suggestion to get it off the incentive. Why haven't we done what you just said?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Why haven't we pursued it like you just suggested, talking to their insurance?
Because they wanted to give the homeowner a chance first before we went after their insurance.
The homeowner does not seem receptive to that.
Right.
So I guess I would ask Laura to go ahead and proceed with insurance and see how this, but I'm glad the invoice has been paid, because again, it was not Ameriscape's problem that they went ahead and did the work.
You need a motion?
You got a motion for that?
Oh, do I have a motion to ask Laura to go ahead and contact their insurance company to pursue payment on this?
This is Bruce Glad. I make the motion that we go ahead and go after the insurance.
Vince DeJoe seconds it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. All right, monument discussion. Nancy, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As requested, I did go out and take pictures of all the monuments we have. Since I sent in this presentation, I have learned that the monument at the clubhouse and the monument at the town center actually is within our purview, so therefore, we no longer need to consider asking them to pay for it. The one thing that I do want to mention before I go through this, and I would like to get some input on this, is I've had quite a few people who've been very unhappy of the colors that we picked up front, but there's been less noise than the people who have, you know, found me at flip-flops. So, you know, I'm thinking, I like the colors. I think that people should take accountability and come into these meetings if they're interested in having input. So the question that I have is, do we want to keep the same colors we chose in the front? Or do we want to consider new colors? And we don't have to discuss that now, but just put that in your brain. Because I don't really know what the whole feedback is since we don't do surveys. With that said, we have 13 monuments that are the same, 7 monuments that are the same that have the Pelican stamps, and 15 monuments that are unique. I also added bridges in here, not knowing who owns them. But if we do the monuments, we may want to consider the bridges as well, so we have some continuity.
It's a split.
Within the whole
Depends on where it's at.
With that
I
said,
have to look it up.
I've included pictures of every single monument. The cons, I suppose, in us attempting this is many of them have a lot of grown plants around the monuments. They're dirty, which I know would get addressed once we do some type of schedule for painting these, which I would assume would be staggered. But if we want to use the same colors, certainly I would suggest that we have a few more people inputting as to, you know, I think we want to do the same kind of trim color. We want to do the same color that we would do if we ultimately did anything with the stones, which I'm not sure we will. But I am the worst person to ask when it comes to, okay, this is multi-tiered, where should we put all these colors? I honestly am not good at that, so I need some input from the group. The question also becomes, you know, would there be a schedule for this? I understand, at least this is my understanding, that the maintenance person is going to do all of these. So other than the paint, the cost should be minimal, but we still have to budget somewhere for the paint. And when I looked at the budget, I didn't see that anywhere. And so I had sent a note and said, hey, where are we going to get the money for this? So that is the work that I did on behalf of this group. And I will silence myself now and ask for some input based on the work that's been done so far.
This is Mark. We're not going to change colors, in my opinion. These are the colors that this group chose, PPCA approved. You will never make everybody in here happy. I am fully aware of that. I've been to the president's meeting and let them know that their monuments would be painted with those same colors, and they were very receptive and happy that it was going to be done. So they have been informed as well. So at this point, I think the monuments need to be cleaned and then painted. I've talked to Daniel, and he thought at that time anyway, they could get to like an average of 1 a week. Just start working their way through. He asked for a list of what order we would like them to be done, and then he would get started on that. The paint, which we will somewhat discuss where it's going to come from later, will come out of a line item budget. I've already told him it's R&M other landscaping, and that's why we're putting more money into that as well. So in my opinion, at this point, we need to get a group together to decide what color scheme is going to go on the different monuments and let Daniel know so he can tell his people how to proceed. One thing.
The current colors that you picked, the new colors, okay? This is Marty Mantenfeld. They match other developments along the tree line, Bridgetown and everything, so we would be in line with that. Now, the only question that I have is, I know it's not in the budget this year for the PPCA to paint the wall, but are they gonna paint the wall in the new colors or the old?
That's a color for PPC, or a question for PPC.
No, you guys can be there.
I'd suggest, Mark, it's Nancy again, we start from the front and work our way back.
I guess, and we can talk about it another time, but I would like to get the four-way stop painted next. I mean, that's a huge impact area, and it kind of keeps the theme coming into the community, in my opinion.
And that's where the town center and the clubhouse is, right?
Correct.
So that's multi-layered. So the ones that are simple, you know, that just have, I call them wings on the side, right? The smaller ones. Those to me are easy to do because you do the same trim color and you pick the grays. You figure out which gray you want, right? And if there's a stamp, you paint it white. Okay, the Pelican preserve stamp.
Yep.
But the town center ones are multi-layered, and I don't know if you want to show those.
Yep.
And that's where I kind of struggle. I think that's a picture of the town center and the clubhouse there. Keep going. Keep going.
So,
I'm sure I did. Huh.
anyway, I agree with you, Nancy, and I don't know how to go about getting a group of volunteers to
Who's
select
that?
the appropriate colors to be placed where, and I am not that person, as my wife will attest to.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're in here on the Avila page. It says monuments that are unique, and I don't see page numbers 7 of 10. Sorry. So there's clubhouse on the right top and town center on the bottom left. Page 7 of 10. There it is, I think. Yep.
Yeah, town center.
But you'll see how it has like multi-layers up to the sign and then tiered layers down. And then the plant bed actually has stone there. Sorry.
Okay, so basically, we have the colors that we're going to use. We just need someone to say where they will be applied to the monuments, and hoping keeping with close to the same theme that we have started out front already. And we need somebody to be able to do that so Daniel's crews can have direction.
I mean, I'm happy, this Nancy, to do the ones that are not multi-tiered. And the ones, for example, I just don't feel comfortable with the town center and the clubhouse. And since we can't get together as a committee, we have to have individuals make that decision, I guess.
Do we have someone who would like to take that upon themselves to make those determinations? It does not have to be a member of this committee necessarily. Well, definitely we want it similar to what was out front. I don't know if it can be mimicked exactly in looking at this stuff.
During the last meeting, was it Vincenzo that?
Yes.
We didn't, remember we were gonna do one side?
And
We
we
did.
did do that.
This week, I didn't look at it.
We did, believe it or not, it doesn't look like it. So Daniel Potter, Public Works Director, didn't look like it changed,
Looks pretty similar.
but the bronze color itself, base coat put back down as a white, and then the bronze put back over, and they look basically
He
identical.
painted the whole thing white.
Yeah,
And then he put the bronze on, it looked like he never touched it.
yeah,
Drove by and it looked the same, so I'm like, well, maybe.
It is.
it does. It
So
looks
we
the same.
switched the colors. Myself, on the ones that are same, I would have done the opposite. We did I believe, the trim in white, right?
Yep.
Memory serve. And then we did the 2 colors of gray. Now on a sign like this, I'm assuming this would be white, right?
Yep.
This could be maybe the darker gray with the lighter gray or vice versa, but I don't know.
I'd like to step in and say something about the colors of the monuments. My name is Maxine Hansen. And the problem I'm seeing is as soon as you paint these monuments and the sprinklers go on, you're going to come back with these yellow bottoms over this light gray. And I think this is going to be a problem because if you look at all these pictures, they're all water stained from the irrigation. And I think we should bring that into, it should be part of the process of what colors you're going to paint these.
Maxine, this is Nancy Smith. If memory serves me correctly, in our contract, we did put on an anti-rust. Did we not?
And we are
So we should not have
researching.
the same problem.
We are researching sprinklers which will not hit the monuments with a different type of sprinkler head. to limit that.
Because the light gray, the light white, as soon as this water hits it, you've got the same issue.
Okay, thank you.
Where do we decide?
We haven't decided anything. Basically, we know the colors. We need someone to designate which colors will be applied where on the monuments.
How many colors do we have?
There's
Three.
three,
And the letters are a bronze.
and the letters are bronze. Yeah.
Nancy, is there a way that you can take like one of each standard monument and maybe even like the sign on the bottom right? Do some kind of photoshopping with white on the trim and then show the grays forward and then backwards. So we can look at that and make a call. But it's really, really hard, at least from my perspective, to make that choice without seeing something in advance like we did before we saw the front line. Do you have a package?
Why don't you just paint one? Talk about the next week. Paint one side and one way and the other side the other way, and then you have a choice.
Yeah. So to try it for me personally in house, to try to go and do Photoshop on one of these, it's not going to come out and look what it actually is going to look like when you paint it on there. I'm not going to have the right color. I'm not going to have the right. Now, if we went out to an Elias Brothers, Sons of Monaco, or somebody along those lines, they'd probably have the software to do something like that.
Too much fun. Why don't you just take it and run them on, and one side one way, the other side the other. Bring it back.
Bottom one on the
Yeah,
right?
bottom right. And then we'll go from there. Bring it back here and make it a tool. A pilot, so to speak.
It also means it's another month before your next meeting. So I don't have a problem. So what I've been doing is, for best practice, is I'll blind CC everybody with a picture and get feedback individually from each one of you. If that's the way that you want to go, it'll speed up the process. It doesn't mean that you won't be interacting with each other. You'll just be interacting with me.
And the decision's already been made.
Yeah. Well, what I don't want to happen is, okay, it takes a month before we come back and talk about it. Now it's a month that only looks like something's halfway painted, not painted. Now I'm getting more and more complaints through our C-Click Fix items about the color variations or not being painted or not being complete or something to that effect. And then I would like to have like an order of march so that my guys can have a priority of, okay, once we say we like this style, move forward, and I can start tackling these much quicker.
How would we handle then the town center sign and the club sign or the thing outside here? Because you can't paint one side and then paint the other side different, right? That's pretty visible.
This is Mark. I think we have to make a choice and just go with it.
I mean, honestly, if you ask my opinion, it should mirror up front.
Yep.
The exact same
Exactly.
paint scheme that you have up front for the monument it's the exact same style. And
If you have the ability to do that, this is Mark, I would appreciate it if they would go ahead.
Okay.
And that will keep them busy for a while.
This is Nancy. Thank you for making that decision.
Okay.
This is
Done.
So this is Mark. At this point, you will go ahead and instruct them to paint with the same color scheme that we have out front. Monuments at the four-way stop. And then they will also go ahead and paint the one we were discussing on the bottom right, and you will send pictures of that out just to get people's interpretation of what they think of that.
Okay.
And one last question, I'm sorry, this is Nancy again. Are we responsible for the bridges? And if so, are we going to take care of those as well?
According to Daniel, we share responsibility with.
There's ones that we do and ones that we don't. And off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. I'd have to go back and look at
We have
at LIPA.
Pelican Reserve Boulevard,
Yeah.
and we have Trieste.
Yep.
And we have Casella.
Mm-hmm.
It would be my preference that we go ahead and paint those two for continuity's sake, so it's not.
Yeah, that's not really space. That's there.
So
I will see within my abilities in-house to take that on. And that might be something with bridges we'd have to take out for a bit.
Behind the Brokey Center is, belongs to the golf course.
I just leave it, it's not.
It's not ours.
Yeah, just the main roads.
Mark, this is Sherry
That's
Bristow.
right.
As a follow-up, do we know anything about the stone at the front? Remember, we were talking about painting it or staining it. Any follow-up on that?
The stone stayed, I haven't had
Right.
any direction to touch anything of that, so.
Correct, and we are going to talk about that now. It would be, I think, this group's preference to paint it so it closer matched the color scheme, because right now it just kind of stands out as a beige among all the new colors.
It is a sandstone look, and I will say that as soon as you paint it, you're not going to be able to keep moisture out from behind it. So I don't know if I would recommend painting those. I would maybe test a section that doesn't have high visibility to see if it's something that you actually like or not, because it's not the same material as the rest of the material on the monument. And I don't know if it's going to hold or stick to it as well.
Can you investigate that? Because I do believe that there is a proper process for steam. With that said, the reason I'm asking is I love what's up front. I think it's beautiful. Some people may see a beige, I see a yellow.
Mm-hmm. So if we stained it, what color would you want it to go? That's my next question.
I think we would have to do the gray, the light gray. Just like in the picture that I brought last week, I can send that picture to you again, where it just looks absolutely beautiful with the gray. Would you like me to send you that picture?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would like to see it, Cindy
In the
Watterson.
original proposal
I'll send it,
from
I'm gonna
Elias
send
Brothers,
it to,
it showed the
send it to
paint.
Georgia, and Georgia can filter it out.
Okay.
Okay?
Sorry, I didn't.
So in the original proposal from Elias Brothers, they sent different color schemes. So that was always painted. So then when they went to paint it, they said, well, you shouldn't, we're not going to paint that. So that was somewhat disappointing. So we are moving forward on the monument painting. Next item up is reduction of size of annual beds. And that was mine that I brought up. Looking at some of the annual beds, they're 30, 40 feet long. For every foot, by my rough calculation for what we pay for annuals, we're paying about $25 a foot for every time we switch out annuals. So I don't know that we need a 30-foot long bed to get that pop of color in these locations. It would be my suggestion that we consider not all of them, and I'm not eliminating any beds, but on some of them, shortening them up. And then putting in bushes or whatever we decide to try and alleviate some of these 3 times a year annual cost for new annuals, where I just don't think we're getting the value for what we're paying for by keeping that large of a bed of annuals.
Cindy Watterson, I know that in the contract, they have the choice to pick the flowers.
Yes.
That's my only concern. I agree with saving the money and making them smaller if they pick the colors they're going to pop. If we have some washed out colors and it's smaller, you're not going to get that overall pop of color.
Yep.
So I know that's part of it.
Vince, because I don't have one other, it's just every time I see it. So last night I just got back into town, and where the 4 big monuments are, Country Town Center,
Yep.
the club, the flowers have already grown past the lights. The monuments aren't lit up. Why not eliminate those flowers up there? Put paper down, put hardscapes in there. You'll always see the sign, and just concentrate on flowers down below. You'd save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The sign's there to work. It's now it's not lit up, and that's what the flowers have only been in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And they've already dwarfed half the signs. And just make that hardscape top area one expense one time with the rock, and never again. Just put flowers at the base.
I guess I would probably consider trying that, but I would not make it permanent, depending on what kind of feedback we get from the residents as to how we may have destroyed the community by doing something else. Yeah.
Right now, I just see shadows.
Right.
And
No. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying I would probably not do that as a permanent thing the first try, just to see what kind of feedback we get from the residents. And I was wondering if somebody would like to investigate that further and make recommendations to the committee. Yeah.
I've been on my mind for months.
Okay. Vince will follow up on that and.
I'll measure it, I'll get it.
That'd be great. Does anybody have?
I have a comment. This is Sherry Briscoe. I just wanted to let you know, my landscaper said that Ameriscape planted the flowers in the wrong sequence. So the yellow one should have been up front. Because now you look at it, it doesn't go like.
It's not tiered correctly.
Correct. So be aware that Ameriscape had planted them incorrectly. And I don't know if that's something we want to give them in the future. In the past, it's been good. I mean, the impatiens look great, but they're all impatiens.
Right.
So when they did 3 of them, somebody put them in the wrong sequence.
That was a discussion I had with Ameriscape because they gave me the sequence and then when they planted them, they did not plant them in the sequence that they gave to me. And they went back because they used a third-party vendor and the third-party vendor said, no, this is the way they should actually be planted. And at that point, I was not going to request them to pull out several hundred plants to move them around. But it was definitely something that was brought up to them.
Thank you for being honest.
So Vince will follow up on that. Next up is I'd ask people to consider what kind of designs we may want to consider on the front panels along tree line coming into Pelican Preserve. And I don't know if anybody has given much thought to that. Again, in looking, as we said, our colors are somewhat matching some of the other communities along tree line. So as you drive down tree line, I've kind of looked to see what they've done along the walls, because several planted along the walls. I think the copper leaf looks pretty darn good. And as long as you get it watered appropriately right after you plant it, I think it presents well. Again, I don't want a solid massive copper leaf, so I would like to use that intermittently with something else. Other suggestions that I threw out were one panel, red copper leaf, another panel, like a triple Christmas palm with arbicola around the bottom, just to give you a variation of color as well as texture. I'm seriously throwing this open for other ideas if anybody has anything. There are 15 panels and they're about 15 feet a piece that I would like to see landscaped.
Cindy Watterson, I like how it looks for the colonial when you go down and you
Well,
see
they did a nice job.
Yeah, they did a great job there. Something like that mirrored in ours, maybe not as many, it's really full.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's full of plants. The copper leaf is your background and then something in front, or are you thinking more something in between?
I'm thinking something in between.
Something that would pop, some yellow, something that would.
Again, that's the arbicola, you get your. Then you don't have to worry about what's getting irrigated when. Nature just takes care of everything. Once it gets started, all of that stuff seems to grow fine on its own. So, other recommendations? Scott, you got any?
Oh, I generally, I agree with you. I like our arbicola copper leaf look. I know you like dwarf exhors as well.
Again, I would consider the arbicola a little bit more just to get that variety of color in there. If you go with the Exora, you're going to get green with some red, and we're already going to have the red with the copper.
Yeah, and the crotons are good too, but they've been hit hard with the mealy bugs.
Yeah, arbicola generally perform well. Not everywhere, but generally perform well.
Well, with the copper leaf, you've also got the green one too. The
There,
variegated one,
there is the green and white variegated.
which looks really good side by side.
On the golf course, they use it.
That, they have intermixed them on the golf course. The only thing that I'm concerned about is I'd like to get a block of color, because if you're going down tree line at 45 miles an hour, you don't have time to see a variation in between individual bushes. You need a mass planting to really catch the color as you go. And that's what they've done on the other side, going down tree line where they have used the copper leaf. They use group plantings versus small.
Cindy Watterson, now, would they be out from the wall, so when we eventually paint
They,
the wall?
they do have to be off the wall. The wall is not ours. We have to leave room for maintenance by PPCA.
Maxine Hanson, I suggest, since none of us have worked in the fields of landscaping, why couldn't you call a couple different companies other than Ameriscape, have them give us a quote, an idea of what they thought would be good and conducive to Florida plants for the tree line?
This is Bruce Blatt. We do have 2 members on this committee who have degrees in horticulture or own business,
okay.
landscape business. So we do take their advice into account.
Sounds good.
So where would we like to go from here?
Well, I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna check out the panels and count how many.
Okay, Vince will follow up on that. And then again, we would like to get a recommendation in to get this done sooner than later so we can take advantage of the rainy season.
Okay, Cindy Watterson, so if we don't have a meeting in June and we don't vote on it till July, will we miss, I mean, we won't be planning till August? I mean, that's a concern, right, with the weather?
I have to be careful how I handle this, but it is my understanding that we technically do not have to approve this as a group. The expenditure will not be of a level that we have to do that. We like to do that just to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk about it. But if this group is okay with it, Vince can take a look at it, come back with a recommendation. And then if it's okay with everyone here, assuming that I don't have any issues with it, we would just go ahead and approve it and get it done.
It's just gonna be pretty simple. It's just we want color.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
And it's going to be more of a repeating thing as opposed to.
Like in Colonial.
Yeah, down along the tree line, looks good.
This is Bruce Blatt. Just for the record, what is the watermark for the spending without approval?
I think it's $20,000.
Okay.
Never
Just
did it.
wanted to be on the
No,
record.
this won't even be close.
Do we want to go ahead and approve it up to a certain dollar amount?
Not to exceed
Right.
15,000.
The item up on the board right now has got a not to exceed for about $10,000. That was a high water mark for what Mark had put in on the agenda item.
Vince, since we're still at the entranceway, we getting anywhere with all those lights that are not working, broken, snapped off?
I've got some lights that I have already ordered, and I'm just trying to coordinate it with Bentley Electric to get out and put some in.
Cindy Watterson, while we're on that, I'm starting to work some bids for the Christmas lights. Will this be fixed? Will the boxes be fixed for the Christmas lights?
As they stand right now, they're good. That's not to say the first time that the sprinklers hit the electrical, that it's not going to pop the
Right.
GFI.
I understand that problem, but they're all working.
Yeah, they should be all
And
working.
do you have any schematic of that, or is it just me? Okay.
I don't have
I'm gonna
schematic
go
of
out
that.
and make one. Okay.
They came out and they changed a lot of the light bulbs for the overhead chandeliers. And when they did that, I had them comb through and make sure everything was good. So as far as the guardhouse sits right now, the electrical outlets should be
Anywhere
and
else
fine.
though, out
Yeah.
from there?
Mhm.
They all work from there to tree line?
Even if they're laying on the ground.
well. When I can't speak to the ones that have been ran over since that time frame. I've got some hardwired LEDs that I'm trying to put in at the roundabout there at the front. I have a couple of repurposed lights for the flags that I'm trying to get put in up there. They're big dome lights that I'm trying to have installed as well to put some more light back up on the flags. I don't know if anybody's seen, but the flags have all been replaced. So it should be looking pretty good at this point. I got some good pictures of it. And they're properly hung now. The veteran in me didn't like where the POW flag was.
So before we leave this item, I would like to make a motion to give us the ability to approve up to $10,000 worth of work to be done to landscape the panels along the front entrance. Do I have a second?
Second, Cindy Watterson.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And you're using Vince's discretion.
We're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Next up should be a little simpler selection of vines for the pergolas at the entrance. So the pergolas have been painted. They're just about done, if not done, with Pelican medallions, and I think they turned out well. And I would like to put vines on them, which evidently they were there at one point, and whatever happened, they became deceased. So I would like to replant them. Oh. The suggestion that I was making, these are suggestions, welcome to input, but what you're looking at that is Queen's wreath. And if you go, not the pink, well, anyway, I'm looking at the blue Queen's wreath, and that is blue sky vine. And I'm looking at a combination of the two. My wife and I went to Naples Botanical Gardens. They have a long walkway that is covered with vines. And they found that using those two in the combination worked best. The blue colors complemented each other. The blue sky vine is more vigorous and will tolerate the sun better than the Queen's wreath. So the fact that the blue sky vine was growing with the Queen's wreath actually protected the Queen's wreath. So you get the flowers hanging down plus the blue sky vine with flowers on the top. So it was my opinion to plant 4 blue sky vine on the corners with Queen's wreath on the center posts to hopefully get vines growing on those pergolas, which will give us some color.
This is Bruce. Question. Who will be the vendor to do the plantings? How are we going to secure a vendor? Or do we just go ahead with Ameriscape?
It's not a big job. I mean, this would be normally I would just ask Ameriscape to give us a bid. Their bids have been competitive from what I've seen from other vendors. So again, this is a 6 3-gallon pots per. That's both pergolas should be under $500, I'm assuming.
So motion.
Do I have a motion to plant blue sky vine and Queen's wreath for a cost on both pergolas for a cost not to exceed $1,000?
Nancy, so motion.
I second it, Vince Pichetto.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Bench project update. Is that you, Bruce?
Well, it's done.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. And that, I organized it, but Daniel did it. I'll give all the credit to Daniel. His guys were out there in the heat installing them within the last 2-3 weeks. So as far as I'm concerned, the project is done. It came in under cost. I think thanks to Daniel getting his guys to do it. As you see, I took pictures of them. They killed a couple of bits, but they got it done. Yeah. They set it offset it. I already heard about why isn't it centered, because it needs access for the wheelchair.
88.
You see it's off center slightly. That's the reasoning. So that if there's assistance needed, there's room for everybody. So I think they came out great on the 3 spots. Originally, the pond committee gave us 7 locations, which weren't very feasible. And I think these were the most, the prettiest spots, and the trees have been planted, so it's basically done.
All right. I'd like to thank Bruce and Daniel for their work on this.
Absolutely.
I think Bruce deserves a breakfast credit.
Free coffee.
Yeah, you couldn't afford it.
But the guys that did the work, that's your employee. That Pelican deserves. Don't think of it as being somebody on the sour guy.
But these guys were, it was a brutal hot day, and these guys knocked off all three in the same day. So I give them a lot of credit for being out there.
So we got something done.
I'm curious to see how the durability is of the materials that we used here.
Yeah.
The for future projects down the line when the appetite arises again, if you want to do it, to try to stay on board with this product that's a nationally known, recognized product with a competitive price. And I'm hoping that they stay on our forefront when we move forward for any replacements or any other bench projects we have in the future. So.
And it's very little metal involved. The existing benches within the development have a lot of metal, which is starting to rust out seriously. So I wouldn't be surprised in years going forward, we might have to replace some of those. And I would highly recommend this stuff.
Would you want to consider putting ADA compliant access to the non-compliant benches?
No.
Okay. Ask and answer, right?
I don't have a problem doing it. There's a dollar sign associated with it. It's pretty high.
It costs more to do that than it does to put in the benches.
The hardest part was finding a cement vendor. They were two smaller jobs. That was a credit again to Daniel putting it together with the crosswalks. So we finally got this.
Maybe we're all to come out and do it.
Exactly.
Thanks to Bruce and Daniel for getting that done. Next up on the palm tree maintenance, actually, I'd already gotten quotes from Ameriscape to do this. It's an annual thing that we have them do to trim up all the palm trees. And the total cost to do the entire community is just under $30,000. The PO is already issued for that, and Ameriscape will be doing that work in June. And that's the heavy cleanup where they climb up the Washingtonians and do everything to try and minimize a lot of the dead leaf structure, as well as get it done before the hurricane season really hits us.
And that's just part of your annual contract.
Correct. Next up, granting discretionary spending for Public Works Director, which is just as we've been talking, the painting supplies, the bench work, things like that, the flags, things come up, electrical that Daniel's crews need supplies for, and he doesn't want to have to come to this group to get permission for all these miscellaneous items every time. So it was suggested, and I would agree, that we give Daniel the authority to spend up to $1,000 for each occurrence. It would come out of R&M other budget, which we've just allocated additional funds for, to be able to buy these supplies as needed without needing to come to the group. I have requested to still see the invoices for whatever they end up needing to purchase, but not to have to get official approval to make those purchases. So we're not holding anybody up from completing projects for $200 worth of materials.
If we're saying in compliance with coordination with the chair, no problem. We have that step.
Yeah. Is that enough money for you?
For small end O&M items, for like a couple of gallons of paint, things along those lines. What I've been doing across the board and other committees, ponds, and safety and security, is I'm vetting it. And when I don't work alone. Anytime that I'm trying to get something accomplished, I'm queuing in the chair and I'm asking for permission on items. And as I see those O&M items that arise, whether it be hardware, a type of tool, or something that's prevalent to the job, right? The incidentals for the O&M side of the house, I just vet it through the chair and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. And normally it's just the visibility, and it's just a, hey, Dan, go do your thing and you're approved, versus having to bring back every little small item back to the committee in order to get something action.
I mean, he's going to need to keep buying paint, so he needs to be able to do that. He has to buy your flags.
The wording, the public works director in conjunction with subsystem chair. Great.
Yeah. So like like items that were a part of that was Pelican Preserve got the new flag in. That prompted me to go look at the flags that were currently out there. And I was like, hey, these are tattered and in really bad shape. I went straight out and went to an American vendor that created that had those flags made in America and went after those. And it was like $250 worth of flags for the American flag, the Florida State flag, the POW flag, so that we could have all of it look good all at once versus
Well, the overriding
piecemeal
issue is, Bob, again, is that the budgets are the subcommittees.
Mhm.
Any spending should come to the subcommittee, certainly in comparison to, not delay it, the way committees get people. If it's done that way, if it's the first, the public works director in conjunction with the subcommittee chair, whoever that is, we're going that way. You're always signing off on money. Nobody's spending your money without me knowing.
which I do. Because trust me, I don't like to be out there as a lone agent making decisions by myself. So I try to keep everybody in the loop.
Like truck signs.
Yeah.
So
Moving right along.
I would like to make a motion to grant discretionary spending for the Public Works Director, in this case, Daniel, in conjunction with the subcommittee chair or his designee, to spend at his discretion up to $1,000 per occurrence.
I second that motion.
Do all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Cindy Watterson, quick question. And looking at when you come into tree line and you're looking at both sides, the metal fencing, it looks a little bit like it's turning red. Are we addressing that too?
Our side of the road or the other side?
Both sides.
Both
When you
sides,
come
when they
up-
came in, they sanded. I think they lightly sanded those fences. I
Yeah.
don't know who it was or where, but they have not
When
been
you
the
come
actual
up
metal
tree line.
fencing that's inside of both of those two
okay.
monuments on either side. From the road, you really can't tell, but if you get up on
They're
top
small
of it,
handrail
If you're
type
sitting
things.
at the light, it
Yeah.
looks red now. And we have that pretty painting. Everything looks
I-
good.
that might be another item that I can do the black on if that's a
Correct.
color that you would like.
Yeah.
I can have my
Yep.
guys do the painting on
If-
them.
If you
Dress
could do
it
that.
up.
No,
No,
this
it's
is,
the aluminum
Decorative.
metal decorative that's
Yeah.
in the actual monument.
if you're going up to somebody's front porch, it would be like what would be next to you, a railing type.
When you're sitting at the lighted tree line, ready to go out to Cologne, you look on each side and you'll see the red. It's
Yeah,
noticeable.
it should be
It is
black.
noticeable, yeah.
I'm not observing.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else that we would like to discuss at this point?
This is Nancy.
Yes,
Just
Nancy.
one thing, I want to go back to the workshop for a minute. Daniel, I heard you say that we went line by line by line by line, okay? And all that's going through my mind is, we might have one or two additions to a contract or one or two subtractions to a contract, but what I suggest we do in that time is use it wisely and as a group, come up with KPIs and penalties that should be included when we push out the RFP.
That's the purpose of the meeting.
I wasn't sure when I heard we were gonna go line
It's
by
gotta be
line.
line by line, so everybody knows what's there.
Well, I think that there needs to be a lead that takes the reins on compiling what that RFP looks like for scoping side of the house based off of previous contracts. For safety and security, that was like Danny Clemens for the Weiser contract. He took the lead, he compiled it, brought together a product to said workshop, and we went through that as a group so that it wasn't starting from scratch or we weren't just coming there to spin our wheels. We had a product to work off of. I pulled that up on the screen and we went through a line by line.
Could he use the old contract as a base?
He took the old contract as a base and then moved forward from there.
Do you have that in Word format?
I can get it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
You guys hear? So ultimately, we have a template boilerplate RFP docs that has all of our insurance requirements and things like that. All we need is the scope and then the bid form. So if that is what you can focus on during your workshop, that would be ideal. So what I've heard today, something that we want to consider changing on our scope for next go around is perhaps we identify the colors of the annuals. We want to make sure we have a quarterly meeting with the vendor, make that a requirement of the contract. We want to probably redefine the response time on certain, actionable items. So those are all just some samples of what I've heard today.
Cindy Watterson, when you send out the Word doc, can you send it to all of us?
I don't know what's going through yet.
Pardon?
Is one person working on this or?
No, I just wanted to look at it.
Yeah.
I assumed you were.
No, please don't make that assumption. Fine, don't make that assumption.
Okay.
Is there anybody that'd like to take lead on that contract scoping?
I can, if you want, Cindy Watterson.
Okay. I'll have it's on the agenda item that was posted today for all those previous items. I'll have Georgia work the Word version and send
Yeah,
it out
Word-
to all the committee members.
Yeah, Word version would be helpful.
But I'll make sure you get it.
Okay.
Let me, because I'm gonna be out of action for several months, I returned for a month and then have a surgery, which I don't think I'll be able to attend the meeting, but is there a way I could work with whoever's gonna lead up the contract?
Not allowed.
I just want to make sure. Okay,
Only in the meetings.
okay,
So
so
at the workshop,
I'll make my notes and
Yeah.
we'll work it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Push you here in a wheelchair.
Well, thank you. Landscaper.
But we won't get water, I'll shrink even more.
Any other items for discussion at this point?
next meetings,
Next meeting, where is that sheet?
the sign-in sheet.
Yes, that had who was available.
You got it somewhere over here.
Here it is. So Bruce is out.
I'm out.
You're out for June.
I'm out for June.
I am out for June.
I'm out.
All right.
Okay, so
We,
no June.
we will not have a meeting in June.
Other than the special meeting.
Right.
Other than the
Correct.
workshop.
Work's already
All
on
right.
the schedule.
Do we know about July? I am out. Pardon?
I'm out.
Okay.
Me.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
There's a chance, depending on Casey, for July, that we may have a meeting.
The 18th.
Casey will probably be.
Okay. So there could be a meeting in July with Vince, Cindy, Casey, and Sharon
And that's the 25th of July, right?
at fourth Thursday, whatever that is.
Yes, 25th.
25th. I'll be good.
Can I, it's Nancy, can I suggest, if at all possible, since we got a lot out in July, that we can get those minute meetings out before the following meeting? So that at least we can be up to speed on what happened in that meeting?
The July meeting.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I need to see those before we meet in August. That would be very, very good.
So we're talking our next meeting then is August? I mean, except for
July,
July. And then August, some of us are out again.
depending on who is here, we'll have to make that
The
determination.
workshop is June the 6th. Subcommittee meeting is July 25th.
Correct.
So this Bruce on the 6th, because I won't be here, I'd like to be involved in the workshop. Would it be linked or have to call somebody who would put it on their phone?
It'll be linked.
It would be
Okay.
linked.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Hi, this is Georgia. I have a question for you on your June 6th meeting workshop. We have a board meeting that day at 2. I don't know if that's gonna change things.
Move it to the morning.
Well, then Nancy's not available.
You can go Wednesday or Friday.
Well, Nancy says no.
Well, either way, I mean, you guys can proceed forward with that.
I know we
should work
can,
around
but-
my schedule. I'm sorry I have these.
No, no.
commitments, but I didn't.
No worries.
You can do
I think we can, since I would prefer to have Nancy there, and I would just go ahead with June 6th at 2:00 if that's what she can do.
Georgia said they can't support it. But she's in the-
Oh,
Yeah,
they can't
that's the
support it?
problem. That's a CDD meeting.
Mhm.
Georgia monitors that
How do
one.
you guys feel about an evening meeting?
I'm fine.
I mean, how long do the CBD meetings normally last?
2 to 5, 5:30.
Depending on if you got a
Well,
workshop or not.
Georgia's
might
not
go
gonna be
6.
available for an evening meeting,
All
though.
right.
Well, that's 3.
I reluctantly sometimes support evening meetings, but that's cutting into my evening.
Well,
Yes, I mean, is that a problem?
is there enough support on
Yeah, I have no problems coming over and setting it up. I can come over,
at 2:00? No, at
and
2:00.
as long as Chelsea doesn't mind me missing out on some of the board meeting.
What's wrong with, you can't do the 5th at all?
Well, if Daniel can support it, I mean,
I could do the 4th.
That's what day of the week?
Tuesday, 4th?
Tuesday the 4th? What time can you do it, Nancy?
Anytime after 10.
10:00, Tuesday the 4th. No.
What
trying to
time-
get
what
us
time?
This route, 10:00, Tuesday the 4th. I will check with Coco on a meeting, place availability.
You gotta do whatever you do.
All right?
All
Can I
right.
ask one more
That was
question?
10 o'clock?
Yes, Nancy.
Sorry, since you're gonna be working on the document,
Mhm.
is it possible a couple of days or so before we meet that you can send that document to Georgia and she can send it to each of us individually? So we have time to review and be prepared for that meeting?
So we're talking next Friday then, right?
Yeah,
June 1st or 2nd, somewhere in there.
send it out the 31st of May. Yeah. Did they just, Daniel, could they just put it out on the short point and people could?
The collaboration portion,
Uh-huh.
sunshine laws, putting it out there with all members on the same item,
So I send it to you direct or Georgia?
Georgia.
Got it.
She's the keeper of keys.
Got it. Got it. Will do.
Anything else?
And the Word doc I should have today or tomorrow, maybe?
Yeah, we should be able to get it today.
That'd be perfect.
I have a motion to adjourn.
I have an item.
Oh,
Good.
yeah, Mark.
So everybody was so complimentary about people who worked on the benches.
Yes.
Do we possibly want to recognize them at the next Board of Supervisors meetings?
I think
Thank you for their work.
Very good.
So Daniel can get their names to the.
I just did the admin side. They did the hard work.
Yeah. You'll have to send Bruce his breakfast certificate in the mail. He won't be there.
Happy now?
Try to get it
Good enough.
Try to get it
Got
over.
it.
So that will be for you and Carol.
We have breakfast with Bruce and Happy Hour.
Like the rodeo.
If I can get them together.
I motion to
Second the
Second, all
motion.
in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.